Hi everybody, Matt back with you. Hope you're okay. Today I'm back in Rochdale and I'm on my way again to Rochdale Cemetery. And what I'm doing today is to look for a group of people who are buried in the cemetery. Their graves, I think about 17 graves if I can find them all. They are all members of a very famous cooperative movement that took place in the 1840s, and they are called the Rochdale Pioneers. Now, they weren't the very first cooperative, but they were the most successful, and the rules that they set as a co-op still apply to new co-ops setting up today. I'm not going to go too much in depth into the co-op side of it. If you want to know more, there is a website, there's lots of books, and there is even a Pioneers Museum here in Rochdale. I'll put a few pictures on of that. This one particular, we're just going to look at the graves and a little bit of info about each one we find, and I hope we can find most of them. So I'll see you at the cemetery. The Rochdale Pioneers were 28 working-class men who founded the first modern cooperative society in 1844. Their aim was to help improve living conditions by providing affordable yet high-quality goods. They opened a shop here in Rochdale on Toad Lane in 1844. That shop is now the location of the Rochdale Pioneers Museum, and this is the actual shop that they sold their goods from. Honest weights and measurements at fair prices, of goods like flour, butter and sugar. Although it was not the first cooperative movement, it was the most successful and set the foundations for modern cooperatives. They came up with a set of principles for cooperation, which are still used across the world today. The shop at Toad Lane became a museum in 1931. It's a free museum with lots of information and items inside, and worth a visit if you're in Rochdale. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm not particularly here to go on and on about the pioneers themselves, what their movement was or anything like that. There were people who do a much better job than that, either at the museum or probably videos on it. It's not my kind of passion, so you're better off going elsewhere for that. However, there is a graveyard tour, and that's why I'm here today. So I'm using, I've thrown it on the floor, the Rochdale Pioneers Grave Trail, and we're going to walk around and see if we can find all the graves. 15 of the original 28 members are buried here in Rochdale Cemetery. The booklet has photos and information on each one. Now, for this video, some of the photos will purely be from this original photograph of the group. Some of the individual photographs have copyright, so some will have info, some will have photos, and some won't. Hope that makes sense. Let's start the tour. And the very first grave is on the left-hand side of the entrance to the cemetery. John Garside, a cabinet maker and preacher from Halifax. So I think all the graves, because there is an official tour here, there is, as you walk around, notices on the side who they are and where to find them. So obviously we have James Wilkinson here, and it says 6.5 meters away, and as we look up there we can spot James Wilkinson's grave. James Wilkinson was a shoemaker and also a parson at the local church known as the Co-op Chapel. As a preacher did back then, he was known to walk across the hills in all types of weather to preach at places like Todmorden, Bacup and across Lancashire. John Scowcroft, originally from Stockport, was a labourer and a rag and bone man. Like the other two, he was also a local preacher. John appears on the group photograph, which was taken in 1865. So hopefully we'll find everything is on the path as we walk around. We have another one here. The fourth one to find is Abraham Greenwood. However, he is 17 metres away. Okay, I'm going to guess it might be this one. Okay. Yeah, beloved wife of Abraham Greenwood. And there he is. Abraham was originally a wool sorter, but went on to have many roles as one of the Rochdale Pioneers. Perhaps most importantly, he was the Society's cashier and bank manager for 24 years. Samuel was a wool weaver and joined the Pioneers as its youngest member, aged just 19, and went on to be their first manager, a position he held with them for 20 years. And right next to Samuel is his father, Miles Ashworth, also a pioneer and also a former wool weaver. An interesting part of Miles's life was that he was once a British Marine who was part of the guard on the ship which took Napoleon into exile in 1815. Although for this video it's literally a look at a gravestone and one line of information, a lot of the people in this graveyard tour could well do with a video of their own. Our seventh grave is of James Tweedale, a clog shop keeper and one of the first directors of the Rochdale Pioneers Society. He also became president of the society and was said to have increased the number of subscribers to the co-operative in his time in office. Okay. 25 metres, right. I think it might be the one just here. Yeah. James Smithies from Huddersfield was the one who took the shutters off the shop at Toad Lane on the first night of business. Originally a wool sorter and bookkeeper, he also helped teach young and old men reading, writing and arithmetic on Sundays. Okay, must be this one. Oh wow. John Mitchell. Living in Rochdale all his life, John Mitchell started his working life at the age of 11 in a local cotton mill. Over time, he became the president of the Cooperative Society for over 20 years. Not on the official list, but next to the grave for Mr. Mitchell. This one is definitely linked to the cooperative as well. Meters, so that should make it this one. Robert Taylor was a former wool weaver and also involved in the educational work that the pioneers did, and elected librarian in 1849. Quite interesting story for Taylor is that he would often wear clogs. So as a librarian, he was too noisy, and they had to buy him some slippers instead. Okay, so our next grave doesn't actually have one of those little plaques at the side. Robert Taylor is just there on the right. But this is the next one. The beehive for John Collier. There again, one of the first 28 originators of the Rochdale Equitable Pioneers Society. John Collier was originally a labourer, but had an interest in steam engines and actually turned a skill into a job and became an engineer. He's also said to be the great-grandson of famous Lancashire poet Tim Bobbin. On his headstone is a beehive, a symbol of the cooperative. So the guidebook I've got actually gives you full directions. It's not just the map, and do follow it if you get this. It's spot on where you need to be. We have our next one, John Hill. Yeah. Originally a carpenter, John Hill was said to have used a wheelbarrow to carry the first stock that the Rochdale Pioneers used in their shop from Manchester, using a wheelbarrow for 12 miles. As you can possibly see or hear, we are once again here when there is a funeral, so I'm hopeful we're not going to get too near today. We can still find everything, but yeah, that's what this place is for, isn't it? So not just for me wandering around yakking away. Right, let's find the next one. Not part of the pioneers here, but some very interesting tombs here. Big ones. Next up, our 13th grave is that of Irish-born John Bent, who was the auditor for the Rochdale Pioneers. Originally working as a tailor, he ended up teaching maths to adults in the Pioneers Sunday School. He appears on the photograph of the 13 pioneers without a hat, and apparently this was the only time he was ever seen without it. Benjamin Jordan was a pattern maker, joiner an ironmonger, but moved to Clitheroe to run a pub. Whilst there he joined the Conservative Party, becoming a town councillor. He was the last of the original pioneers to pass away, and the only one to make it into the 20th century. Apparently is said to have had little interest in the pioneers at the end of his life. James Standring was also in the woolen trade, later becoming a grocer and shop owner. He was involved in weighing out the flour during the evenings in the store at Toad Lane. 10 years before the Rochdale Pioneers, he tried to set up another cooperative in 1833. And he also later campaigned in 1840 for the 10-hour Factory Act, calling for the working day to be limited to 10 hours by law. Benjamin Rudman was originally a weaver, becoming later a builder. He built 26 houses at a place called Rudman's Yard and lived there pretty much his entire life. A man with a fair amount of money, the society borrowed money from Rudman to help them in their early days. Okay, so our last one is here. William Cooper. Just 7 metres in. There we go. William Cooper was the society's cashier as well as the correspondent, and spread the message of cooperation across the world. He also worked to convince the public to oppose slavery in the cotton-producing states of America. Dedicated to the cooperation and working day and night, for the first 3 months of trading, he wasn't even paid, until it was found later they had made enough money to pay him. Okay, tour complete. We've found all 17 graves. So yeah, if that's just something, not every graveyard has an official tour booklet for it. But yeah, 17 of the 28 original pioneers. The rest are buried elsewhere. And again, if you're interested in that, look in the book, it tells you where they are. But yeah, so thanks to the person I spoke to. I went to the Pioneers Museum first and got the booklet and got a bit more info there. But yeah, as I say, this was more for the graveyard tour for me, and a bit of info about the people. The movement itself, very important obviously, but probably look elsewhere for that. I'm not going to make it up as I go along. Alright guys, we'll see you for the next video very soon. Take care.